I thought my wedding day would be the happiest of my until my mother-in-law gave a toast about how she always preferred my husband's ex over me. I was already planning my affair while walking down the aisle. Not consciously, but the seeds were there, planted 3 months earlier when Marcus started texting me after seeing my engagement photos on Instagram. Congratulations, beautiful. He's a lucky guy. That's all it took. One text from my college boyfriend and suddenly my entire relationship with David felt small. The wedding was everything I'd dreamed of. 200 guests, Italian string quartet, flowers that cost more than most people's cars. David looked at me like I hung the moon. His mother, Patricia, had tears in her eyes during the ceremony. For a moment, I forgot about Marcus entirely. Then came the reception. Patricia stood during dinner, champagne flute trembling in her manicured hand. "I want to toss my son and his beautiful bride," she began, and I smiled, thinking finally she was going to accept me. David has always had such wonderful taste in women. His last girlfriend Sarah was like a daughter to me. So smart, so accomplished, so perfect for our family. The room went dead silent. David's face turned ash gray. But Patricia continued, oblivious or cruel. "I'm sure Emma will grow on us too." To the happy couple, 200 people raised their glasses while I sat there humiliated, in my 3000 dress. David squeezed my hand under the table, whispering apologies, but the damage was done. I smiled and nodded through the rest of the evening while inside, something fundamental cracked. That night, still in my wedding lingerie, I texted Marcus back. I'm not sure how lucky he really is. We talked for hours. He was in town for work next week. Maybe we could grab coffee, catch properly. Just as friends, of course. I was married now. I wouldn't dream of doing anything inappropriate. The lies we tell ourselves are always the most dangerous ones. Our coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into drinks. Drinks turned into his hotel room, where I let him peel off my clothes like he was unwrapping a gift that had never belonged to anyone else. 3 days married and I was already breaking the only promise that mattered. Different now. Marcus whispered against my neck. More conical. Everything David never said. Everything his mother made clear I'd never be. I told it was just physical. Just something I needed to get out of my system. David would never know. What he didn't know wouldn't him. But secrets have weight. They change how move through the world. I started picking fights with David over nothing. The way he chewed his food, how he left dishes in the sink, his mother's constant presence in our lives. "She's just trying to help," he'd say, and I'd want to scream that help wasn't supposed to feel like by 1,000 cuts. Marcus and I started meeting regularly. Always at his hotel when he was in town, sometimes at a little apartment he rented across the city. He made me feel alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible. Desired, chosen. Not the consolation prize, not the woman someone settled for, but the woman someone would risk everything to have. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was becoming exactly the kind of person Patricia thought I was. Unworthy mistake. "Leave him," Marcus said one afternoon as we lay tangled in hotel sheets. "We're good together." We always were. I almost did. I came so close to walking away from my 6-month marriage that I drafted the text message. Typed it out, deleted it, typed it again. "David, I'm not happy. I think we made a mistake." But then I thought about the wedding. The money we'd spent. The gifts we'd received. The congratulations posts still trickling in on social media. The shame of admitting failure so quickly. What would people think? So instead of leaving, I got pregnant. Not on purpose. At least not consciously. But when I missed my period, there was a moment, just a flash, where I felt relief instead of panic. A baby would fix this. A baby would make us real. Would make Patricia accept me. Would give me a reason to stop seeing Marcus and become the wife I was supposed to be. I never told David about the timing. That the conception happened during the week I was meeting Marcus every afternoon. That there was a very real possibility the baby wasn't his. Some knowledge is too dangerous to carry alone. But some knowledge is too dangerous to share. The pregnancy made everything worse instead of better. Patricia swooped in with opinions about everything from my prenatal vitamins to my choice of hospital. "Sarah would have gone to a better doctor," she'd say. Or "Sarah always said she wanted to breastfeed for at least 2 years. Sarah, the ghost of David's perfect ex-girlfriend haunting every conversation. Meanwhile, Marcus grew impatient. I was showing now, couldn't meet him as often, couldn't stay as long. "This isn't what I signed for," he said during our last encounter. "I wanted, not this domestic drama." That's when I realized I'd lost everything and gained nothing. My marriage was a performance. My affair was ending. Hurt, and I was carrying a baby who might not belong to my husband, while his mother made it clear every day that I'd never measure to the woman who came before me. The morning sickness wasn't just from the pregnancy. It was from the I'd built on lies, finally trying to me from the inside out. Emma Louise Rivera was born on a Tuesday in March, 8 months after my wedding day. She was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, David's nose, my eyes, and a full head of dark hair that looked nothing like either of us. The first photo I took, I stared at her little face, searching for clues, for answers to questions I couldn't ask out loud. David cried when he held her. Real tears, the kind that come from somewhere deep and pure. "She's beautiful, Em." Did so good. His mother stood beside him, silent for once, but I caught her studying Emma's features with the same intensity I had. For 6 weeks I tried to be the mother I was supposed to be. I breastfed every 2 hours, changed diapers with military precision, posted glowing updates about new motherhood, but inside I was drowning. Every time I looked at Emma, I saw Marcus. The same dark hair, the same olive complexion, features that would only become more obvious as she grew. Patricia noticed first. Of course she did. "She doesn't look much like David, does she?" she said during one of her daily visits. We were sitting in the nursery, Emma sleeping in her crib between us. David was so blonde as a baby. Blue eyes. "This little one looks different. Babies change," I said, not meeting her eyes. The pediatrician said her eyes might lighten. Patricia's silence was louder than any accusation. That night David brought it over dinner. Gently, carefully, like he was handling explosives. Mom mentioned Emma doesn't look much like me. I mean, I don't care obviously. She's perfect. But what? Nothing. People keep commenting. The mailman yesterday said she must take after side of the family, but she doesn't really look like either. My fork clattered against my plate. Asking what I think or asking.
No, God.
I would never. He reached across the table. I trust completely. I love both. I just thought maybe we could do one of those DNA tests, just to shut everyone. To prove to Mom that genetics are complicated and babies don't always. I left the table. Left the house. Drove to Target and bought a bottle of even though I was still breastfeeding. Even though I had a 6-week-old baby at home. Even though my husband was probably pacing the living room wondering what he'd said wrong. I sat in the parking lot and called Marcus. First time in months. Emma's born. I said when he answered. Congratulations. Boy or girl? Girl. She looks like. Silence stretched between us like a confession. How sure are? He asked finally. Sure enough. What do you need? That's when I knew. He didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't ask about David or the baby, or whether I planned to tell the truth. He asked what I needed. Like this was a problem to be managed, not a weed created. I need to disappear. I whispered. Delete my number. Don't contact me again. Ever. Emma, I'm serious. She's David's daughter now. That's the only way this works. I hung and sat in that parking lot until was gone and the sun had set. When I finally went home, David was rocking Emma, singing softly. He looked when I walked in, his face creased with worry. Where'd it go? I was scared something happened. I needed air. The DNA test thing we don't have to, I didn't mean to upset. I know she's mine. Of course she's mine. But he ordered the kit the next day. I saw the Amazon notification on his laptop. 2 weeks later, while Emma napped and David was at work, I sat on our bathroom floor with the cotton swabs and made the choice that would end everything. I could have thrown the kit away. Could have told David I'd changed my mind. Could have lived with the uncertainty forever. Instead, I swabbed Emma's mouth and David's toothbrush and my own cheek, sealed everything in the provided envelopes, and drove to the post office before I could change my mind. Some truths are inevitable. They'll surface eventually, usually when least expect them. Usually when they can cause the most damage. I thought if I controlled the timing I could control the outcome. I was wrong about everything. The results came back on a Thursday. David's name wasn't on the envelope, but I recognized the company logo from the kit. I stood at the mailbox for 10 minutes, holding my marriage in my hands, 99.9% probability of exclusion. David Rivera is not the biological father of Emma Louise Rivera. I drove to Patricia's house, not home to David, not to a friend or my mother or anyone who might have told me to think it through. I went straight to the woman who'd spent 8 months making me feel like an imposter, and I proved her right. I need to tell something, I said when she opened the door. She was wearing an apron, flour dusting her hands. Probably making David's favorite cookies for our weekend visit. Emma, what's wrong? Look terrible. Emma's not David's daughter. Patricia went very still. The kind of still that happens right before and. What did just say? I had an affair right after the wedding. Emma isn't David's. She slapped me. Hard enough that my head snapped sideways. Hard enough that my cheek burned for hours afterward. Little, she whispered. I knew it. From the moment I met. I knew weren't good enough for my son. Patricia, get out. Get out of my house and don't dare come back. And if my boy any more than already have, I will destroy. Do you understand me? I understood. But understanding doesn't make things easier. It just makes them clear. That night, I told David. He was feeding Emma, talking to her in that soft voice he used just for her, when I walked into the living room with the DNA results. We need to talk. He looked at the papers in my hand and something in his face just died. Like he already knew, had maybe always known and had been waiting for this moment to stop pretending. She's not yours, I said. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. David looked down at Emma, still cradled in his arms, still gazing at him with perfect trust. Then he looked at me and I saw the exact moment he stopped loving me. How long? His voice was barely a whisper. 3 days after the wedding. Ooh, Marcus, my ex from college, does he know? Yes. David nodded slowly, like he was processing information in a language he didn't quite speak. Then he handed Emma to me and walked upstairs. I heard the bedroom door close. Then lock. Then the sound of something heavy hitting the wall. I sat alone in our living room holding a baby who'd just lost her father, and realized I'd finally gotten what I thought I wanted. I was free of David's mother's judgment. Free of a marriage built on lies. Free to start over. I just hadn't realized that freedom would feel exactly like falling. David moved out 3 days later. Took 2 suitcases and his laptop and left everything else behind, including the wedding photos still in our hallway. I watched from the nursery window as he loaded his car, Emma sleeping against my shoulder, oblivious to the fact that the only father she'd ever known was walking away forever. He didn't ask for custody, didn't ask for visitation, didn't even ask to say goodbye. I can't look at her without seeing what did. He said when he came back for the rest of his things a week later. That's not her fault, but it's the truth. Maybe someday, but not now. The divorce papers arrived on a Monday. No contest, no battle over assets or custody, just a clean amputation of the we'd built together. I signed everything with Emma on my lap, her tiny fingers wrapped around my pen. That's when the real consequences started. Patricia made sure everyone knew. Not just our friends and family, but David's coworkers, our neighbors, the parents at the prenatal classes we'd taken together. The story spread like wildfire through our social circles. Emma cheated on David right after their wedding. The baby isn't even his. Can't believe it. My phone stopped ringing. Instagram comments turned vicious. Former friends crossed the street when they saw me coming. The isolation was surgical in its precision. One day I was part of a community, the next I was radioactive. I had to find a new pediatrician because ours was Patricia's recommendation, and she made sure I knew I wasn't welcome there anymore. Had to find new grocery stores, new coffee shops, heard new routes through town that didn't take me past places where I might run into people who knew. Emma and I lived like refugees in our own city. The financial pressure was crushing. David had been the primary breadwinner. I'd been working part-time, planning to be a stay-at-home mom. Suddenly I was a single mother with no support system, no savings, and a reputation that made finding decent employment nearly impossible. Word travels fast in professional circles. I applied for dozens of jobs, made it through several interviews before background checks or casual conversations revealed who I was. Oh, or that Emma, the one who. And suddenly the position had been filled by someone else. I had to move back in with my parents at 28 years old, carrying a 6-month-old baby and 2 suitcases of shame. My mother tried to be supportive, but I caught her looking at Emma sometimes with this expression of regret. Not at Emma herself, but at what Emma represented, the evidence of my failures written across an innocent face. My father was more direct. Made bed, he said. Now get to lie in it. That poor man. That poor little girl. Emma started walking at 11 months. Her first word was dada, spoken to empty air. Looking around our cramped apartment like she was searching for someone who was never coming back. I cried for 3 hours that night. She looks more like Marcus every day. The same dark hair, now in perfect ringlets. The same olive skin, the same stubborn chin. Sometimes I catch her making expressions that are purely his, and I have to leave the room because the resemblance is like looking directly into the sun. I tried to contact Marcus once, when Emma was a year old and I was drowning in medical bills and rent and the crushing loneliness of single motherhood. Left a voicemail explaining the situation, asking if he wanted to meet his daughter, maybe help with support. He never called back. 2 weeks later, I got a text from an unknown number. My lawyer says if contact my client again, will pursue charges. He has no interest in our child. Move on. That's when I understood that I'd been useful to Marcus, but Emma never would be. She was proof of an indiscretion, not a blessing. Evidence of poor judgment, not love. Emma turns 3 next month. She asks about her daddy sometimes the way all kids do. I've shown her pictures of David from when she was tiny, told her he had to go away for work and wouldn't be coming back. She nods solemnly, like this makes perfect sense in her 3-year-old world. But she's starting to notice other things. That other kids have daddies who pick them from daycare. That we never go to family gatherings on holidays. That when people ask about her father, I change the subject or make excuses to leave. Last week, she asked me why we don't have any friends. I couldn't answer her because the truth is too complicated for a toddler to understand. We don't have friends because I destroyed every relationship that mattered for a few months of feeling special. We don't have family events because my choices made us pariahs. We don't have a daddy because I chose to the only man who ever loved me enough to forgive anything except the one thing I actually did. The worst part isn't the loneliness or the financial struggle or even the shame. The worst part is watching Emma grow, paying the price for my choices. She'll never know the man who sang to her as a baby, who cried when she was born, who loved her completely for the first 3 months of her. She'll never have grandparents who spoil her or uncles who teach her to ride bikes or a big extended family who celebrates her existence. She has me, and I love her desperately, fiercely with every broken piece of my heart. But love doesn't erase consequences. Love doesn't undo damage. Love doesn't give her back the father I stole from her, the family I destroyed, or the community I alienated. Sometimes I lie awake at night wondering what would have happened if I'd just endured Patricia's comments. If I'd fought for my marriage instead of running from it. If I'd talked to David about feeling excluded instead of seeking validation from someone else. If I'd been brave enough to build something real instead of burning everything down for something. But those are dangerous thoughts. They lead to madness. Emma is napping now, curled with the stuffed elephant David bought her before he knew she wasn't his. I kept it because it's one of the only things she has from the man who wanted to be her father. When she gets older, I'll have to explain why he disappeared. I'll have to tell her about the choices I made and how they shaped the she inherited. Heard. I'll have to look my daughter in the eye and explain that she lost a family because I thought I deserved better than what I had. The hardest part about writing this isn't the humiliation or the regret. It's knowing that somewhere out there, Patricia was right about me all along. I wasn't good enough for David. I wasn't good enough for the we'd built. I wasn't good enough for the trust he placed in me or the love he offered or the future we'd planned. And my daughter, perfect and innocent and beautiful, will spend her whole living in the shadow of my inadequacy. Emma is almost 4 now, and she started asking why her last name is different from mine on official documents. I kept Rivera after the divorce because I was too ashamed to go back to my maiden name. Too proud to admit the marriage was over. Too scared to face the paperwork that would make our failure official. But Emma Louise Rivera will never be a Rivera. Not really. She's the daughter of a woman who traded everything that mattered for nothing that lasted, and no amount of love or regret or sleepless nights can change that math. Some mistakes don't get forgiven, they just get lived with day after day, until they become the only truth. No.